In wrec, parent elements can pass their properties to child elements. This automatically creates two-way bindings. If the parent changes its property value, the corresponding child property is updated. If the child changes its property value, the corresponding parent property is updated. Let's look at an example that utilizes this. This code can be found in the color-demo directory. To create this project from scratch, create a new directory named color-demo, cd to it, create a package.json file by entering npm init-y, install the wrec library by entering npm install wrec. Then create a number-slider.ts file shown here. This defines a web component that renders a label, an input with type equal range, and a span element that displays the current value. This component is form associated, so it can contribute values to form submissions. The label property specifies the text to display to the left of the slider. The label with property supports stacking multiple instances vertically where their sliders all begin at the same horizontal location. The min and max properties constrain the allowed values of the slider, and the value property specifies its starting value. Next, create a color-picker.ts file shown here. This defines a web component that renders a color swatch and 3 number slider elements for selecting red, green, and blue values between 0 and 255. This component is also form associated, so it can contribute values to form submissions. The background color of the swatch is determined by the color property value, which is computed based on the values of the red, green, and blue properties. Dragging the sliders changes the values of the individual color properties. Note how the HTML calls the method makeSlider 3 times to create each of the sliders. Next, create a color-demo.ts file shown here. This begins by importing the definitions of other components that it uses. Then it defines a web component that renders a form containing a color picker to select a color, a number slider to select a font size, a P element that displays sample text, and buttons to submit or reset the form. The sample text is styled with a selected color and font size. The lock-in color checkbox is explained later. The form uses the input http:/bin.org/post, which is useful for testing post requests. After changing the color and size, click the Submit button to see the data that is submitted. We'll demo this soon. Note the use of the form-assoc attribute on the color picker element to specify a mapping from property names to form keys. This is necessary for a wrec component to contribute multiple values. It maps the properties red, green, and blue to the form keys R, G, and B. The form-assoc attribute is not needed when a wrec component, such as number slider, has a property named value and only wants to contribute that single value. In that case, the form key is the value of its name attribute, just like in HTML form controls. Next, create the index.html file shown here. This just loads the component definition and renders an instance of it. Install Vite by entering npm install-D Vite. Edit package.json and add the script dev that runs the command Vite. Start a local file server by entering npm run dev. Browse localhost 5173. Modify the color sliders and note that the color of the swatch and the color of the text change. Modify the size slider and notice that the font size changes. Click the Submit button and notice the form values that are submitted. If the disabled attribute is added to a custom element for a wrec component, wrec adds that to every descendant element that can be disabled. The component defined in color-demo.ts renders a checkbox labeled lock-in color. Checking that causes the disable picker property to be set to true. That property is used to set the disabled attribute on the instance of the color picker component. When that is true, all the sliders in the color picker component are disabled. The color-picker.ts file doesn't contain any code to handle the disabled attribute. Wrec handles this automatically. You've seen an example of utilizing two-way bindings between parent and child components. Think about how much additional code would be required to implement the same functionality in any other web framework or library. In the next video, we explore how wrec supports computed properties and the role played by the useBy property configuration property.